Hello, everyone. So, in the series of company wise interview questions, today's company is Synchron, and I am sharing the interview questions for automation QA engineer experience range between 3 to 5. And I have collected this data from the people who have appeared in the interview recently. And this is not it. There may be multiple questions, and but this is something that will definitely help you to prepare in your interview process. So let's get started. So, as we all know, the first question will be coming to us will be like, tell me about yourself. So, tell me about yourself is something that we answer it very casually, or we don't prepare for it because we think like, tell me about yourself is something we can tell them and on the spot. But that is the question that creates a good image or a bad image in the mind of interviewer. So, if you're telling something, basis or on the basis of your past experiences or the current job responsibilities, maybe the next question is coming to your way from whatever you have said. They will pick up those key points from your introduction only and they will ask you the question. So make sure to do prepare well for this particular question. Sometimes it happens like for with me also it happened whenever at one company happened in the interview and they have not asked me about myself. They directly asked me about the coding question. So that might be the case. But in ideal cases, tell me about yourself. It plays very important role. So how do you answer tell me about yourself? You might have prepared something well, but like ideally the key points that we should consider is uh, what 4 points that we should always consider is like our past experiences and whatever we are doing in our current role, future aspirations, and skill upgradation. So, with past experiences, I mean, whatever you have done in your past organization, whatever skill you have gained, whatever achievements you have done. So, you should mention those and not in so detail, but yes, you should mention those. And then in your current role, whatever your job responsibility is, what you are doing, and how, on whatever domains you have worked on. So you should mention those. And if apart from your work on organization level, if you have done something, you have done um, some client demos or anything. So you should mention that here. And after that, like if you're looking for a new role, so that's why you're giving this interview. So some interviewers might ask you what you're expecting, what you're looking for, and why you are changing. So you should define your career goal here and what is your expectations from this job opportunity. You should ask them or you should tell them. And this particular area should be based on the job description that you have received from this particular job opening. So make sure to do prepare well with these 2 points are I will say the main points. And after that, whatever your skill upgradation you have done. So like in our daily work, we do work as per the requirement. But apart from our work, whatever skill upgradations we do, suppose I have learned REST API or I have create one framework on my own on Rest Assured. So that is something that you are doing offer your skill upgradation apart from your daily work. So prepare on the basis of these 4 topics mainly. And here I have created one sample, what I can say, answer for you guys. So you can replace all those highlighted in yellows and mention whatever you have done in your role. So I have created like I have X years of experience. You can say like I have 10 years of experience in software testing or software development. And I am specializing in automation testing using Java, Selenium, and whatever the key points I'm saying, that should be the highlight of your introduction. So, suppose I am saying Java and Selenium, so I should be prepared enough to, if my next question is related to Java or Selenium, that can be happened. So, do mention all those things that you have worked on. Don't bluff. If you are confident about your bluff, then only go for bluff. Otherwise, I will not suggest you to do so. Okay, so that is all about tell me about yourself. After that, we have explain your frameworks in detail. So that question they ask you to understand like you have worked on a framework or like on which technologies you have used, you have just worked on. a framework or you have created those. So for this, you should answer like in my current project, I have made a hybrid test automation framework, or you can say whatever framework you have developed, you should mention the name particular. You should be clear in your interview. So like that, you have said see in this, and you have what like whatever technologies you have used, you should mention those. Suppose I have used page object model, Selenium, API testing, REST assured, CI/CD, whatever. You should mention those key skills. So the main components of a framework that we work. So this is very basic. You can manipulate the answers accordingly. So the main components are basically test layers. Test layers contains test scripts that interacts with the application. So like our main scripts that there where we write our code, that is test layer. After that, page object layer. That page object layer is where we put all the elements. So that separates UI element and user actions. After this, we have utility layers where we put all the utility methods, elements to like which are common reusable functions like data handling, reporting, logging, etc. After this, we have configuration layer, which is stores external properties such as environment details. I have suppose 5 environments and I'm keeping it in configuration layer. Then we have test execution and reporting layers that handles test execution and report result reporting. Further, we have continuous integration and deployment layer, which it is not mandated to have this, but yes, if you have, like you can say that automates execution using Jenkins. Further, if you want to explain it more, then you can go for page object model that is used for UI automation. Then test execution using TestNG. And suppose I have used data-driven framework or something, then I can say I have used data-driven testing with Apache Poi. Then for reportings, I have used Log4j for API automation. I have used REST assured, CI/CD with Jenkins, configuration management with property files. So you can mention it like that, but it sometimes they ask you particularly like what have you used for reporting, or suppose what how you're doing data driven testing. So you should be prepared well. If no one is asking you, you should explain it. That will help you only to gain wealth. Okay. Then our next question is, if I have two classes, one parent and one child class. Child class extends the parent class. In both classes, I have one common method. If I create a reference of parent class and initialize it with object of child class, which method will get called if I have constructor? So, like I remember one of the scenario, whenever they ask you this kind of question, they will be asking you verbally. So now you are seeing this as a text, but they will be asking you verbally. So make sure you to pay attention because this is slight confusing. So in this question, what they are trying to ask is if they have suppose two classes, class A, class B, one is the parent, suppose parent class and the child class. So the child class extends the properties of parent class, and in both the classes they have one common method. So if they create a reference of parent class and initialize it with object class, so this is the main point. So reference of parent class in the sense we are creating one reference of parent class and we are initializing it with an object of child class. So which method will get called, and if they have constructed in both of the classes. So this this should be the program for that. So ideally, you don't have to write a program or something. You just have to answer which or if they will give you a pseudocode or ask you to answer, then it is quite easier for you. So if we have a parent class here, and in parent class, this is our constructor, and this is the method in parent class, and this is the child class, which is extending the parent class, and in this we have constructor and a method that is overriding the method of parent class only. So now we are creating, so like they have written over here, if they create a reference of parent class. So suppose I have created one reference of parent class, parent obj, and I am initializing it with object of child class. So I have initialized it with new child. So what will be the outcome? What will be called first? And suppose I want to call the method. So I am calling a method by object dot show. Show is the name of method. So what will be the output? So suppose if we are if we go with this approach, like this is the object of child class, and child method will be called first. So child method is child class method. But if you see, if it is calling child class, then child class is extending the parent class. So first it will go to parent class and parent class constructor saying parent constructor. So in this hierarchy, something which will be printed first is parent constructor. After this, it will print the child constructor. Then it will print this child class method. This will be the hierarchy. So let's see. See, object creation is like we have created this object, and then this is calling first this constructor and then this constructor, then this method. All right. So this is how it will work. This is the written explanation of it. The output would be parent constructor, like I said, then child constructor, and then child class method. So this will be the hierarchy here. I hope you understand. All right. So the next question is difference between status code 500 and status code 503. So, firstly, 5035, those error codes that are starting with 5 are basically related to server only. So make sure if you are not able to answer any of the questions, at least say that this is server related errors. Something like that. That is, I am telling you for the worst case scenario, but yeah, make sure to prepare well. Okay. So HTTP 500, that is for internal server error, which means the server encountered an unexpected condition that prevented it from fulfilling the request. I hope you understand that the server was not able to make it and due to some unexpected condition. The causes of it, why this happens. A problem within the server itself, example, a bug, a database crash, null pointer exception, anything can happen like that. Who will be responsible person to fix it? So mostly developers, engineer needs to debug and fix the code on server side. An example, like how you will remember this, the internal server error. So suppose I want to book a flight, but due to a null pointer exception in the backend, the request fails. The server responds with 500 internal error. So I'm not able to book a flight. After this, we have 503, that is service unavailable, which means the server is temporarily unavailable due to maintenance or overload. So what's this called? The server is working fine, but cannot handle the request at the moment. In this case, the problem is with the server itself. But here, server is working fine. That is the major difference. In 500, the server was the problem itself, but here the server is working fine, but cannot take the request due to overload, maintenance, or any sort of issue like that. Who will be the responsible person to fix it? The DevOps admins needs to scale up the server or restart services. Example for this, a banking application goes down for scheduled maintenance from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. If a user tries to access it during that time, they receive 503 service unavailable error. I hope you understand. I kept these examples to help. They will help you to remember these questions. I know you will understand that, but how will you remember those? So with these examples, you will understand and remember this. So next question is, which test management tools do you use? So test management is something where we write a test cases, we store, we maintain. So basically we use Jira, TestTrain, Azure DevOps, or any sort of tool that you use. I'm not saying you have to answer this way, but yes, whatever you are using, you can just manipulate this answer and say confidently whatever you are using and what you know specifically. All right. So we have our sixth question is, can we override static methods? Okay, so first of all, static method is something we cannot override because they belongs to the class, not object. So we cannot override the static method because they belongs to a class, not an object. So these questions will sort of rapid fire round or something. So you have to just answer in one word. You don't need to respond each and every question with a lot of details. You can just give one-liner answers if you're not sure about the further things. Okay, next is, can we override final method? No, final methods cannot be overwritten because they are declared as final to prevent modification. As we all know, wherever we put final keyword, we cannot further modify it, whether it's a variable, it's a method, or anything. We cannot modify wherever final is there. So final is something final. You can remember like that. We cannot do further modifications with it. So answer is no. Which agile processes and ceremonies do you follow? So first of all, here are ceremonies. I usually get very confused. What are the ceremonies? So ceremonies are nothing, but you can just keep in your mind ceremonies are the meetings, are the meetups, or yeah, like that only. So agile processes that we follow is Scrum framework, Kanban, or whatever the Scrum processes we follow, that will come under agile. And the agile ceremonies is something. Suppose in the very initial days of a sprint, you are planning for that. So you have to set up a call. So that call itself is a ceremony. That is a part of ceremony. The sprint planning is as a part of agile ceremony. Daily stand-ups are also part of agile ceremony. Sprint review, sprint retrospective, backlog grooming. So every meeting you have is a part of agile ceremony. Okay. Further, we have write the code to extract username and password from dot properties file in Notepad. Okay. So first of all, dot properties like config dot properties we all have in our framework where we put username, password, or all the essential data. So suppose I want to extract username and password from this config property files, and how can I do that? So first of all, suppose username is it is in this manner, key value pair. Username is admin user, password is secure pass 123. So here is the code. How can I extract the data? So I have used file input history. First of all, I would tell you here I have imported properties class because property class is used to load dot property file. That is the mandate thing that we have to keep it here. And then I'm using file input stream. So with file input stream, I can navigate to this file path, and then prop dot load will load the file that I have given here. And after this, with this prop dot properties, like with this prop, I can use suppose I want to do any of the operations. Suppose I want to get property or anything that I want to do. So I have created an object for this, and this prop I can use multiple places. So suppose I want to extract the username here. So string username is equals to prop dot get property username. String password is equals to prop dot get property password. So I can get it by this way. And whatever I have stored here, I can print it like this. So I, first of all, for this prerequisite says you should be aware what nomenclature we have used in config property. Suppose I have given name here. So this will not be called. Suppose I have given just pass here. So this will not be called. So the ideal approach is you have to call this, then create an object with this, and then you can use prop.load. This will help you to load the file, and then you can perform all those operations. All right, I hope I was clear. And then you can close this file, and as usual, this is your final code. Then we have there was one Java question also they have asked, like move even numbers to the left and odd numbers to the right in an array. So here I have used two pointer techniques to shift even numbers to the left and odd numbers to the right. Okay. So this was a program. This is a given array. So we have to keep all the odd numbers to the right and all the even numbers to the left of the array. So I have used two pointer approach. So here this is suppose I have given one while loop here, and what this will do, this I have declared one variable here and one here. One is for 0 that will start from the very beginning, and one is the right one that will start from the very last. So left will start from extreme left and right will start from extreme right. Then we will start with the loop. Like while left is less than right, we have to check whether if left is less than right and array of left. Suppose this is an array of left at this moment is 2. So 2 divided by this ampersand sign is we return as a remainder. So if we divide 2 with 2, then it will give us a remainder that shows that this number is an even number. So if it is an even number, then the left should be incremented with 1. So it will go to here. So suppose 2 is a even number, then it will move the pointer to 5. Again, it will check when this condition will fail here. Then it will move to this while loop. If left is less than right and array of right divided by 2 is not equal to 0, that is, this condition is satisfying the scenario. So the right will be decremented towards the left. So right from 9 will be moved to 5 here. Then after all these happen, when our 2 pointers meet each other, then we have to swap the even and the odd numbers. So if left is less than right, then we are using one temporary variable here that will store the extreme right. If suppose our right is left is not an even number, it will store that and then it will swap with the number which is on the right. So in this way, this will happen. So that was the approach for this that we can use. There may be multiple approaches, like we can use a different array to store the variable from extreme right or extreme left, which are the odd numbers which are not divisible by 2, that will be stored in that array from the very start, and then the numbers which are not which are divisible by 2 will be stored from the very other corner of the array. So this way also that can be done. But I found this approach a quite easier one. That's why I use this. So the output should be visible like 2, 4, 8, 6, 1, 3, 7, 5, 5, 9. You can see 2, 4, 8 are the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8 are the even numbers, and the rest are odd. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching. And I will be making more videos in this series. So let me know whatever you have liked, whatever you have not liked, and whatever you find was helpful to you and what you want me to make more videos on. Please suggest me those topics. Thank you. Thank you so much.